Well, hi friends, this is Brad Apple. I hope you're all doing well out there, and I just want to extend a thank you again to those of you who are watching the channel and who have subscribed and shared it with other people, and let everybody know what's going on and what we're doing here on this channel. I sure appreciate your support, and thank you very much. I'd like to talk to you today about some of my favorite albums that have come out through the years, and in particular, maybe some that have flown under the radar or just have great songs on them or great kickoffs or great solos on them. And one of the first albums I'd like to talk to you about is this one right here. See, Virginia Squires. This album is called Hard Times and Heartaches, and it came out in 1986 on Rebel Records. For those of you who didn't know, the Virginia Squires consisted of Ricky and Ronnie Simpkins, Sammy Sheeler, and Mark Newton. And they did a total of about 5 albums through the time that they were together as a band. This was next to the last album that they did. And it really has some great songs on it. All of their records did, really. But this one, I have to say, has some really great material on it and great arrangements, and one of the best solos, I think, kickoffs and solos in recorded bluegrass album history would be on this album right here. And the fourth song on the A side there is called Hard Times in Kentucky, and Ricky Simpkins plays the fiddle on that song there. And by the way, the song was written by Larry McPeak, who many of you that know anything about, bluegrass going back a few years know how great of a songwriter Larry McPeak was. And he had a band with his brothers called the McPeak Brothers, who also recorded for Rebel Records. But if you have this album, it's on YouTube, so yeah, you can listen to this album at any time. But listen to Hard Times and Heartaches, the fiddle kickoff, and especially the solo Ricky takes on the fiddle towards the end of the song. It's really great. Secondly, there's another song. They're all good songs, but another one is War Between the Hearts, but it has some really great stuff. Sammy Sheeler takes a great guitar solo on that song, and Ronnie Simpkins is playing a fretless electric bass. He does some nice slide stuff and nice bass work on that song there. So that's one album that I wanted to talk about. The next one many of you will be familiar with is this one right here. Larry Sparks, John Deere Tractor. This album was also on Rebel Records. It came out in 1980, and if there was ever an iconic guitar kickoff, I'm as big a fan of Tony Rice or any of those guys as anybody else, but you hear those first few notes of John Deere Tractor, you know that's Larry Sparks, and you know that song, John Deere Tractor. To me, that's some of the most iconic guitar notes in a kickoff that there is on an album right there is this album right here. And it had a lot of other good songs on it too. Girl at the Crossroads Bar, that was written by Bill Bryson, who was in the Bluegrass Cardinals, went on to play with the Desert Rose Band. Love of the Mountains, the good old Alan Mills song there that he wrote, that Larry Sparks adapted to his style. So that's another great iconic album right there. This one I was not familiar with. It's Don Reno, Family and Friends. And I really wasn't familiar with this album until Smokey Green told me about it. When I used to work at Rainey Recording Studio, Smokey would use our studio for his duplication of cassettes back at that time. And one day Smokey actually came through there, and I think he was picking up an order of cassettes. And we were talking about music and what we liked and everything. Tony Rice was mentioned, and he asked me if I had ever heard this album right here of the Don Reno family and friends, and he told me about Tony being on it. I told him I hadn't. Well, lo and behold, about a week or two later, a package came in the mail to Rainey Studio addressed to me, to my attention, and it was from Smokey. He had made me a CD of this album right here. I still have it somewhere, and Smokey wrote out the names of the songs and who was playing and all that stuff. So I'll forever be grateful for that. But it is a great album featuring Don Reno and a lot of Tony Rice on this album too. So good stuff. Here's the next album. This one came out probably about 1988. And it's the Lonesome River Band. The members at this time was Tim Austin, Jerry McMillan, Brian Fessler, and Adam Steffi. And this is the actual first time I heard Adam Steffi back in the late 80s when this album came out. And in particular, Daybreakin' Dixie is on this album right here. And if you've not heard Adam Steffi's version of Daybreakin' Dixie, you need to listen to it. And there's other great songs on here too. There's Kentucky Girl. Tim Austin takes a great guitar solo on Kentucky Girl. So I'll just go along here. Here's the next album, the Bluegrass Cardinals, Cardinal Class. This album came out in 1983 on Sugar Hill Records. And this is one of my personal favorite Cardinals records. I have several of them. I tend to go back to this one, though, a lot because it had a lot of great material on the record. And, of course, the band is great. They featured a lot of Randall Hilton songs. And I have an idea to do a video about Randall Hilton coming up. He was such a great songwriter and contributed so much to bluegrass music. Pulley Bone Gaydon, that's a Randall Hilton song that starts the album. Country Poor and Country Proud, that's another Randall Hilton song that's on this great album. The A-side closes out with Way Out There, and that's an old Sons of the Pioneers song written by Bob Nolan, and I love the Cardinals' arrangement of it. They sound a lot like the Sons of the Pioneers, and I've always wanted to work that song up myself again sometime, or some band should work that up again and do that song. Up and Down the Mountain, it's another Randall Hilton song that's on there. Just a great album there. You know, a lot of people are forgetting about these records that came out back in these times here because they never made it onto CD, and a lot of them have never even made it onto a download format. Here's another album. This is Todd Phillips' released album that came out in 1983, I believe. And this was on Varick Records. Had a lot of great stuff. It's kind of sounds a lot like the era of the acoustic jazz when Tony did the Backwaters album. And really it was recorded kind of close in the time frame when Backwaters came out. Tony's all over this album here. And of course, Todd plays the mandolin and the bass on this album. Jerry Douglas plays dobro. Darrell Langer is on the octave violin. John Reichman is on the octave mandolin, and he plays mandolin on the tune that he composed called Red Hill. It's all on this album Todd Phillips released. If you haven't, you need to find that and check it out. Moving on here, this is another great album I always love from 1982. It's The Lost and Found, and this is the Endless Highway record. And of course, it was the personnel in the Lost and Found back at that time was Alan Mills and Gene Parker, Dempsey Young, and Bubba Chandler made up the band. And they had special guests on this album was Bobby Hicks on the fiddle and Mike Aldridge on dobro. And it has so many iconic songs that have went on to become just bluegrass standards, such as Harvest Time, Wild Mountain Flowers for Mary, the great Alan Mills song that he wrote, is on this album. Love of the Mountains is on this album. Sleepy Eyed John, just another great album right here that you need to check out if you've never heard it. Let's move on here. Here's another one, Dog Grass, Dog Jazz by David Grisman. You flip it over, it's got another cover, kind of a two-covered. But anyway, great record. I think this has come out in 1983, if I remember correctly. And of course, it features David, and Tony Rice is on this record a lot, as is like Mike Marshall, Darrell Anger. Just a host of great things. And one of them, one side is jazz, and then the other side is more bluegrass. And Earl Scruggs is on this record too, by the way. So definitely need to check that out. Here's a band that nobody much remembers anymore, but I always liked them. They did a couple of records in the studio. This was Spectrum, and Spectrum consisted of Jimmy Gaudreau, Mark Schatz, Bela Fleck, and Glenn Lawson. They did a lot of great music, and Red Rubber Balls on this. I guess it doesn't matter anymore. So many great songs was on this record right here. Moving on, and this will be the last one we talk about today. The News Is Out by Doyle Lawson and Quicksilver. This record came out in 1987 on Sugar Hill Records. I personally feel like this is one of the best albums that Doyle Lawson ever made right here. Of course, the personnel besides Doyle was Russell Moore, Scott Vestal, and Ray Deaton. Just so many great songs, and material on this record was so good. It starts out with the old classic, Sweetheart, You Done Me Wrong, the old Bill Monroe classic there. I've heard these words before. That's a great song. Up on the Blue Ridge, the Scott Vestal banjo tune that he just burns up there. The grass that I'm playing is really blue. Another great song. Have I Loved You Too Late? There's a Randall Hilton song, really good. Let the Best Man Win, and what went on to become one of Doyle's trademark signature songs, She's Walking Through My Memory. I believe that was written by Pete Goebel and maybe Leroy Drum. I can't remember for sure. But yeah, check that one out if you. And this one is available on CD, like in a compilation type format, I believe. So check these albums out, folks. They're really good, and I'd like to share more with you someday. So if you've never heard some of these albums, check them out if you get a chance. You'll hear a lot of great material that has really. A lot of people are forgetting about some of this material, and some of that reason is because they're not readily available. I'm sure they're out there on YouTube, but if people just know, to look for them. So anyway, you'll find a great lot of material if you listen to these albums, and I think you'll enjoy them as much as I have all these years. So friends, thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Much obliged to you.